This is Everything Rugby League, a podcast for fans of the sport everywhere.
Can you believe it?
Each week, Keith and Lewis cover news and insights from the game's grassroots to the NRL and around the world.
Good evening or good morning, wherever you're listening from, and welcome to episode 5 of Everything Rugby League, the podcast. As we enter the final stage of both the NRL and the Super League seasons, we'll take you through the weekend's results from both hemispheres. But first, let me introduce my co-host, Lewis. How are you keeping, my friend?
Bro, not too bad. As we were talking a few minutes ago, congratulations to our next superstar, Oscar Piastri. Not rugby league related, but what a sensational talent he is. Australia struggling on the international scene in some sports, but not in Formula One. So, yeah, and it was a good weekend. Really nice studying in England, ready for the Olympics, and yeah, amongst other things, rugby league too. How's your weekend?
Yeah, it was. I've had better weekends. I had the flu all weekend, and I have it right now. You probably sense a little bit of difference in my voice for anyone listening compared to previous weeks, but I'm at the tail end of it, so hoping to hit the gym again tomorrow. So thank God for that. And also, speaking of Oscar, yeah, congratulations, Oscar. Great race. Fuck you, Lando. You can go to hell. But yeah, great to see the next future superstar of international sport for Australia there. Let's get on to our first section, which is NRL scoreboard update.
Yeah, man. So we both saw the game of the round, the Canberra Raiders over the New Zealand Warriors 2018.
It was a dire affair.
Oh god, it was not good. I think it showed Hudson Young scoring 2 tries, which is he's a try scoring machine for a forward, but the way he scored them, 1 off the ruck, 5 out from the line, just showed you where this game was headed. The Rabbitohs 42 over the West Tigers 28. The Broncos in their sort of season saving game, I'd say, 30-14 over the Knights. The predicted game of the round, I don't know how you felt about that afterwards, but the Storm 24 over the Roosters 8. The actual game of the round, 28-26, Panthers over the Dolphins. What an ending. The Eagles, the Des Hasler revenge game was not the revenge game that I thought. 38-8. Now, the Seagulls, aren't they starting to come good at the right time with a good win over the Titans? So I think before this they had a bit of form going in, and last but not least, Cowboys over the Dogs 20-18. Any thoughts on obviously the game of the round? Firstly, Raiders Warriors, since we both had a lot invested in that one, and then probably the real game of the round, Panthers Dolphins, and the underwhelming game of the round, 24-8 Roosters Storm. Storm over the Roosters. What was your take on the weekend?
Well, for starters, the game in Canberra, not worthy of a prime position on Friday Night Football. It was just a lackluster affair, to use a cliche. It was just slow. It was two teams lacking any semblance of confidence. Certainly some of the confidence that we sort of saw them have a little bit in the early rounds of the season. But yeah, just a shocking game to watch. Poor advertising for rugby league. And I feel sorry for Chanel Harris-Tavita. I mean, he's copped a bit of flack. Those were bad misses on the goal kicking. And ultimately, the Warriors scored 4 tries to 3. But I watched that game. Not to sound too negative here, I watched that game and I was just like, I don't give a shit. It wasn't. You could tell both teams, we've played like that. You're not going to challenge even if you do make the top 8. But it's good to see Canberra still alive. But I'm prepared to call it. Warriors season, I don't think we can make the 8 now, unfortunately. Canberra, even if they do, I mean, they'd have to turn it around big time, which isn't out of the question. Don't get me wrong, but yeah, I wouldn't be running scared of either the Raiders or the Warriors. But yeah, that Dolphins-Panthers game, what an absolute cracker. What are your thoughts on that one?
I think Nathan Cleary's to use the business term, he's the unique selling point of the competition. The Panthers are going along pretty well. You add him, and they're basically an unstoppable force. And we talked a few weeks ago that the Storm Panthers grand final is inevitable. I also think it's inevitable that Panthers just keep winning. I can't see a team stopping them, and like and the intangibles this guy brings because like it almost okay. Not to bring it back to the Raiders game, but Jamal Fogarty came back and he turned around the Raiders' attack in the first few minutes. The Raiders could barely score a try the previous 2 weeks. Now, obviously, much better player, Nathan Cleary. He gives that team so much of okay, we can pull it out the bag no matter what the situation is. And I saw a few comments as well, and I think it was a bit harsh. Young Katoa probably, he's still. If the Dolphins do make the 8, and they will, Katoa's probably still a bit too young to lead him to a premiership. But the kid's got a lot of talent, and I think a lot of fans were ragging on him, telling him, "Hey, it is allowed to kick a field goal. You can kick a field goal," and he did. He never. Yeah, don't know how you felt about that one because he had an opportunity to ice the game himself, and it was Cleary was the star. Cleary took the show.
Yeah, I find that difficult to disagree with. Melbourne still with Cameron Munster to come back though, so they could have something to say about that. Melbourne, Penrith, geez, do they play each other before the end of the year? Because if they do, that could be an absolute precursor to the grand final. Roosters, geez, I think they've lost, what is it? They've won one of the last 20 against Melbourne or Penrith, I think. I read that today. If that's true, that's a horrendous run. I can't, you're right. Manly, just take us through the ladder quickly and, maybe there'll be some shocks to me as who's sort of chopped and changed over the last week.
Yeah, so Storm well ahead now, 34 points. Panthers second on 30. You got a bit of a very interesting group coming up. So the Sharks on 28, they got a tiny bit of breathing space. Roosters on 26, Eagles on 25 points. Then you've got the Dogs, Dolphins, Cowboys, and Dragons on 24, and the Raiders on 22. Maybe the Broncos and Rabbitohs can, if they keep it up on 20 points, could sneak in, but it's going to take some serious improvement to be fair, the Rabbitohs, they're sort of on the right track, aren't they? But yeah, I'd say I think we've got that topic on hand where Rabbitohs and Broncos potentially can both still sneak in. I think the Rabbitohs still have a shot even without Latrell coming back, if he's coming back. But yeah, that's probably where the interest lies. At the top of the table, you can sort of rubber stamp that. I mean, don't. But yeah. Well, I don't know. Who's your pick out of Broncos and Rabbitohs sneak in?
I think Latrell has as much impact on a team as anyone has on any other team in the competition. And the only one that could rival that is KP at the Newcastle Knights. I think Latrell has more impact. It's probably controversial to say that Caleb Ponga has at Newcastle. So he's back in round 23, which is very soon. So what are we up to now? Round 21. So he's got a couple of weeks. It's just a matter of whether or not it'll be too late. So the Rabbitohs need to make sure that they win. I mean, they've got Canberra this Sunday night. So, judging by the way that the Raiders played, they might be able to get a win there. Even though the Raiders won, so I'm a bit harsh. And then I think they're going to buy. So
if revenge game, man.
Yeah, good call. If Souths beat Canberra and then have a bye, then I think they'll be in good shape for when the Latrell comes back. Hang on, I stand corrected. They've got the Sharks at Shark Park the following week. So it is a challenge. They need to win probably both those games in reality, but they certainly can't lose both those games. But yeah, I'm prepared to rule out the Warriors, the Knights, the Titans, the Eels, and the Tigers. All right. Last comment on the NRL results is I actually bounced back in the work tipping comp. I got 7 from 7 this round. I think all the favourites won. So well done to me. I'm now second with 2 days off on the line. A lot of stars there. All right, let's move over to the Northern Hemisphere now. So let's talk about results from the European Super League. So we had Castleford defeating Catalan Dragons 24-18. That was actually a really, really close game. Castleford did look relatively in control, but I think Catalans lost that one more than the Castleford one. And I saw that, the defensive lapse by Arthur Morg, for the first Castleford try, and just some really poor, lazy defense. But Sam Tompkins is back in huge news for Catalan Dragons. He's back playing for them next week at home in Perpignan. So I think his leadership will make a big difference to Catalans. Next result, we saw Huddersfield Giants beat Salford at home. That was 16-8. Hull FC getting a few wins now. They won 24-22 over Wigan. So that's quite an upset. Leeds Rhinos going down at home to Hull KR, 20-12. Lead Leopards, of course, beating London Broncos. Easy beats of the competition, so they won 36-6. And St Helens going down to Sam Burgess's Warrington Wolves, 24-12 at home. So that means that Wigan are still out in front on 28 points, but Warrington are really chasing them now, just one win behind on 26 points, as are Hull KR. Real surprise packets to the Super League this season. St Helens, Catalans, and Salford all on 22 points. They're 4th, 5th, and 6th. So what we see in the Super League is a clear break to the top 6, which are the qualifying places. And then you drop down to Leeds on 18, and then a bigger drop even down to Lee, Huddersfield, Castleford, Hull, and the London Broncos. Just want to point to one game in the English Championship. Well done to Toulouse, who inflicted the first loss for Wakefield Trinity of the year. So remember, we briefly mentioned last week that Wakefield were undefeated, 15 games for 15. Well, we put the mocker on them because they travelled to Toulouse and they lost. So Toulouse really making some moves, although Wakefield well and truly out in front of that championship, 30 points. Toulouse second place on 23. All right. Let's move on to our other topics. Or you got any thoughts on the Super League before we do?
Yeah, there's I was looking at the scores. There's some pretty big upsets over the weekend. You consider the state that Hull have been all year, all season. Kind of get a big win over the Wigan Warriors is nothing to just gloss over. That well done to them. And Sam Tompkins, I was just reading as well. Like a fair few people have been caught off guard by this. I'm shocked that he's been asked to come back. Do you think is it even possible for someone to be on the sidelines for so long to come back in the business end of the year and actually contribute? I'm actually perplexed that this has happened.
Well, he's been training for the past 3 weeks, but obviously that's nowhere near the full off season that other players obviously have to train for, excluding the ones that have got hair transplants in the off season, of course. So Sam Tompkins is 35 years old. Like he's quite lean. He's wiry. I think he'll go all right. I don't think he could do it in the NRL these days, and that's with respect to the Super League. I think there's enough sort of lower teams that you can sort of build your way into it. Whereas in the NRL, every single week is a fiercely contested game, generally speaking. I guess if I looked for when it's been done in the NRL, Jason Smith for the Cowboys, chain smoking number 6, if you remember him. He came back and obviously turned out for the Cowboys, but yeah, different era. But I think Sam Tompkins can do it. I think he's a quality player. Might take him a few weeks to get up to speed, of course, but can't see why not. I wanted to talk about, obviously, we've just had New South Wales wrap up the Origin series. We didn't actually talk to Origin last week, but it was an absolute quality game. We won't go over it because every single media outlet's gone over, and it's been about, coming up on a week since the game was held. But I wanted to get your thoughts on where does Michael Maguire stand in terms of the current coaches out there? Not just the coaches on the market for a club, but throwing in Wayne Bennett, Ivan Cleary, etc. Where does he sit for you now that he's wrapped up his first Origin series?
Yeah, good question. For me, Madge is well. Let's look at his career. Where did he coach in the Super League? Firstly, was it
Wigan.
Yeah, and he won a comp, right?
Yeah.
So he's won a comp over in England. He's obviously won a comp with South, and that was a really stacked team. But ultimately, not every stacked team wins a comp. So he's done the business when it matters. And then I think from what I gather with the stories around Ben Teo talking about how after years, obviously at some point the he burns them out. So I think he's from the old school. He's of the I think he learned his trade off Bellamy as well. He was actually an assistant at the Raiders and last season I don't think he actually added too much. But I think if he was to return to the NRL, I don't consider him as a top 4, top 5 coach. Just on the basis that I look at his spell at the Tigers, which wasn't actually that bad in all things, like considering what's happened post Madge. But you just see that, yeah, without the cattle, he's probably not as great as his record. If you take away his performance with the Tigers, you're looking at like one of the best coaches in the last 20 years. But with the Tigers and his assistant roles, maybe not as sparkling. He'd be good for a club that is trying to turn it around just to get a good culture embedded. But then you'd have to shuffle him off at some point because either he's burnt the players out or just hasn't got the talent around him. As opposed to other clubs where, I mean, let's be honest, right? Wayne Bennett with the Dolphins, like that is not a stacked roster. It's got a rookie halfback basically. Like Isaiah Cattell was playing Harold Matts or SG Ball 3 seasons ago. So you've got there's still a bit of a gap between him and the top coaches.
Yeah, so I actually rate him very highly. I know his time at the Tigers was sort of not what we would deem a success, but I think he finished 12th from memory in at least one of the years. And rule of thumb in life is don't get rid of someone unless you have someone better lined up. And the West Tigers made that mistake. Okay, so there's no way that Benji's a better coach than Michael Maguire. I think there's a huge mistake from the West Tigers getting rid of Michael Maguire, and I think he would have been able to challenge for the top 8 if he was given the same squad that Benji has. That being, with Happy Coruscant and Jerome Luai coming in, etc., etc. The reality is that Madge is a premiership winning coach, and people take it for granted that Wigan were one of the sort of favourites that year. Okay, they usually are, but back then they had their real struggles. So his achievement with Wigan shouldn't be, underplayed. He obviously took Souths to the premiership before he was white-anted by Anthony Seibold there and out of a job. He took New Zealand to a 30-0 Pacific Championship victory last year. Australia's never been beaten 30-0. That's a real low light for the Kangaroos. Michael Maguire is at the helm of that. He's just taken New South Wales to a series win over a very well-coached Queensland side by Billy Slater. I dare say if we still had Freddie Fittler coaching the Blues this year, then New South Wales wouldn't have won that series. So he's won championships with New Zealand. He's won Origin Series. He's won NRL Premiership. He's won a Super League Premiership. That's basically all of the big 4 things that you could do as a coach in rugby league. You win a Super League title, you win an NRL title, you win an Origin title, and you win an international rugby league title. So I rate him right up there. And if I'm sort of one of the clubs that don't have, Bellamy, even Robinson, obviously Wayne Bennett, Ivan Cleary, etc., then I'll be having a crack at them. I'm surprised New South Wales, Parramatta didn't. I know, there's a lot in the media about that, but I really rate him pretty highly. But any further comments about Madge?
Yeah, I think actually that's sort of, you summed it up well. You've got that, unfortunately, he's not in that category with Bellamy, Bennett, Robinson, and Cleary. And I wouldn't even put Robinson in that group because he's obviously had the cattle year in, year out. But the performance of those other 3, it doesn't always require a top squad to get top results. Because, Ivan Cleary out in New Zealand showed just what type of coach he was before he even got to Penrith. He's more in that second tier with, say, the likes of Des Hasler, where runs on the board, premiership, all the good stuff, but there is those down years, and yeah, he's been sacked a couple of times. So you sort of have to take the good with the bad with Madge. He's not a lifer at a club, and I think that's sort of probably where you can't put him in that category because he's never going to be there for more than 4 or 5 years, and if he is, he's probably pissed the playing group off because. Did you hear about that story with Ben Tier and anyone that has got some time on their hands? Listen to the story that he said on Hello Sport podcast, where basically they did an army camp and they had to like pick up rice off the floor or something like that. And then every now and then someone would come in and say, "You wrestle with an army instructor, whatever they're called, drill sergeant," and they just have to wrestle with no sleep, and then it would just be a constant rotation with some music in the background, and that's mad to a tease. He's gonna get a team prepared for 1 to 2 seasons of possible premiership play, and then it just slowly implodes. Which is why I'd struggle to put him in that top category because I don't see Bennett doing that. I don't see Bennett losing the playing group as severely as that.
Yeah, fair call. Good analysis, actually. Can't disagree with it. Another thing that I wanted to get your opinion on is a couple of days ago, an article came out in News Limited about the Papua New Guinea team, which is there's been about 5 articles in News Limited on Papua New Guinea in the past 48 hours, at least 72 hours. So obviously they've really ramped up their coverage of that PNG bid. And the gist of the article is that Papua New Guinea players will be given tax-free status, which is a monumental recruiting tool. So I'll just read the first tidbit of it, which is the NRL is set to receive tax-free government deal, which will see Papua New Guinea admitted in 2028 and the coast's top stars pocket extra millions of dollars by playing in the Pacific. The landmark deal comes amid revelations that the NRL could have 20 teams by 2030 under ARL Commission's expansion master plan. This masthead can reveal that PNG and the Australian governments are in talks to broker a historic deal, which will offer the NRL's elite tax-free danger money by moving to Port Moresby. The NRL's number one player, Nathan Cleary, currently on $1.3 million a season at Penrith. Under a tax-exempt PNG contract, he would theoretically save $582,000 on the tax that he currently pays every year in Australia. It means that a superstar such as Cleary or Broncos ace Reece Walsh could pocket an extra $5.8 million over a 10-year period, all tax-free by playing NRL in Papua New Guinea. I guess my question to you is this too big of an advantage? Or, tax doesn't really have a lot to do with the NRL. They already have the New Zealand Warriors who have different tax rates lower than Australian teams. Do you support this? Are you against it? Give me your thoughts.
Wow, this is a lot. There's a lot to unpack here because, look, like me and you both know, there's certain people out there that love a bit of cash and love a bit of, they can stretch a dollar a long way. So, there's, anyways, see, it's hard to convince the player to go over there because look, 1.3 million is a lot of money, and to not be taxed that is unreal. But how many years does Nathan Cleary? Well, like you just couldn't see there's being a long-term approach. They'd probably go over there for a year, realize they're probably away from everyone and everything, and will probably seek a release halfway through because, like, well, I've already made my money. I can kind of come back. So it seems like such an audacious plan to get players over there because they probably sat in a room and said, who in their right mind would want to leave the Northern Beaches, the Shire, the Eastern Suburbs, to another country where they don't know anyone, to a team that's probably not going to be very good. And we're going to have to tempt them with tax exemptions as the only way to kind of convince people to come over. Maybe I'm sounding negative, but I don't see it as that big of an advantage, but I don't see that many people taking it. I guess if you're a top player and you're already on $1 million a year, is it that tempting to go over there to earn even more money, or are you just thinking, well, I'm settled here, my family's settled here. Okay, yeah, I'll be foregoing a couple million, but ultimately that's not that important to me. What's your take?
Well, I mean, I would do it. Yeah. I mean, the reason being is that there's no way that I'm going to earn $1.3 million when I leave the game. You know, you earn that even when you're in the game and you have like a 10-year career, you'd be on that up echelon, maybe half your career once you sort of, you know, take into account the first few years where you're coming through, you sort of made your debut, you're earning your stripes, and then like later on where you're like an aging playmaker or something like that. So you got like maybe sort of like those 6 or 7 years where you're earning that kind of money. And yeah, I mean, you're never going to earn that money again in your life for almost all of these players. Even Nathan Cleary, who, you know, that will probably go on to have a good media career afterwards, this and the other. I think he's got some side hustles as well, but I don't think it's sort of like Nathan Cleary's that will be the most tempted by this. They've also got here in the article. So the average NRL wage is $402,000 per year, and annual tax living in Australia of that 402,000 is 159,567. So the net pay per month in Australia that the average NRL player is paid is $20,574. But if they join the Papua New Guinea team, they will be paid a net wage of $33,500 per month. Now that is actually a big difference comparing $20,000 to $33,500. That's like getting towards doubling your wage kind of thing. So it also goes on to say, so the NRL and the government have come to an in-principle deal of $600 million to fund this whole thing over the course of 10 years. $290 million will go towards the PNG team over 10 years. A further $250 million will be allocated to pathway development and social welfare programs in Papua New Guinea, leaving between $50 to $60 million to be paid as a license fee, which will be shared amongst the current NRL clubs. So $250 million will be allocated to pathways and development, social welfare, etc. So you just need this tax-free exemption for maybe like the first 5 years, because, I mean, they're joining in 2028. By 2033, you'd have some pretty strong pathways for a country with up to 17 million people there who all mostly love rugby league. So you just need to have them competitive, you know, from the outset, and until there's enough players that can actually start coming through, and they're not going to leave halfway through because they love their home. It's like the Warriors have finally worked out. Like, we can't rely on Australian players sticking around. They just won't stick around. Melbourne finally starting to make rumblings like they realise that. But their success has hidden the fact that they failed to develop genuine local Victorian players. But if they weren't so successful, they'd probably have realised that a long time ago. Papua New Guinea will only be successful long-term with genuine Papua New Guineans coming through. So we only need this for like the first 5 or 6 years, and then you can probably reassess it. Any thoughts on that?
Oh, yeah. See, that's the asterisk, isn't it? It's sort of, they might say, okay, it's X amount of years, so there's going to be guys who are going to jump over there for a year or two. And now, is that smart from anyone's point of view? Not really, because if they ever start to get good and then you pull the tax exemption advantage, then all of a sudden those guys will be on the first plane out of there. And actually, what I've got a reasonable analogy for this is that I know you were looking at moving to a developing country to work potentially at one point in your life, and you sort of get there's the belief that if you move over there, it's cheaper, okay, which is 100% correct. But you will be away from everyone, and it's sort of that dilemma that everyone has, where if you move away from somewhere that isn't what you used to, it's not that nice. It's not that nice, but more like, you know, you're just used to the finer things of the Western world, and Papua New Guinea as much as they love rugby league, I don't know what exactly they have to offer to the players apart from a lot of money. So it's I just can't get my head around any of the top players. You're right. The average players will probably jump over there, but whether that's going to be the right model for success is because ultimately you want this team to succeed. You don't just want any old players. Oh yeah, I'll come out of retirement. That's what Sam Tompkins might be after. He's actually trying to he's trying to make a bit of cash at the end of his career. But I don't know, man. It seems like a very I'm very skeptical. But I've been skeptical about this for a while. So last question from me is where are they based? Where are they going to be based? Is it still far north Queensland, or are they actually going to be based?
No, it's almost certainly Port Moresby that they're going to be based, which I agree with. You can't have them based out of Cairns. One, it eats into the North Queensland Cowboys territory. Two, it's not really a Papua New Guinea team if they're like, oh, I like playing, I'll play for your team for the money, but I wouldn't live, where I'm supposed to represent, which is like ridiculous. Imagine them in the Penrith Panthers playing out of fucking Shark Park or something like that because all the players are like, nah, fuck living in Penrith. Like, it doesn't look good. So there's talks of sort of villas or resort style dwellings on Port Moresby Harbour that they're prepared to develop. So it sounds like a pretty decent living, to be honest with you. All right, well,
let's do a deal. Let's do a quick deal then, so I know we're already off to Vegas to kind of help the game out. Just shout out to that. But if they do get this the villas up and running, they look half decent, we'll also come check it out. How about that?
Done deal. Short flight for me, long flight for you.
Yeah.
Sounds good to me. All right, let's get our tips in to round out this episode on a Monday night. Quick fire, Warriors or Tigers at Go Media Stadium, Auckland. Who have you got?
Warriors.
Yeah, go Warriors. Perhaps SJ will be back as well. It's just, I mean, like, positive note, Warriors are likely to become the only NRL team to ever sell out an entire NRL season in history. So that's a remarkable achievement. But yeah, I'll go the Warriors for that one. Tigers are just, sort of low on confidence as well. Parramatta versus Melbourne at Parramatta on Friday night, 8 p.m.
He's on the Warriors selling out. That's amazing, and so disappointing they haven't been able to replicate their form from last year. Sort of, that's awful. That you get the fans coming in, and all of a sudden you stop playing as well as you could have. Storm will run right there.
Yeah, the Eels are $5.30 just for the win. So that's pretty steep. Steep odds. $1.16 for Melbourne, pretty sure. All right, Brisbane versus Bulldogs in Brisbane on Saturday afternoon. This is actually a good game. Who have you got for this one?
Broncos.
Yeah. I mean, I guess the Dogs just lost to the Cowboys. So, yeah, all right, I'll play it safe and go Broncos as well. Speaking of the Cowboys, they are at home again to the Sharks. That's a good game.
Oh, that's going to be a tough one for the Sharks, but I suspect they'll get rid of them.
I'll go Cowboys, and they're actually favourites in the betting market at $1.79, Sharks $2.08, which is interesting in itself. Roosters Manly, always a good game. It's on City Football Stadium or Allianz Stadium. Roosters going at $1.47, Seagulls $2.69. I think the Seagulls should be better odds than that. What do you think?
Yeah, because Seagulls had a good win, and the Roosters were kind of disappointing against pretty disappointing against the Storm. I'll still go the Roosters. Side note, very quickly, what was going on with Brandon Smith on the weekend? Like, he literally was getting smashed and it's like he had some incredible chip on his shoulder. And I was surprised he obviously had a lot of back and forth with a number of those guys. He snapped Warbrick, I think, and then he got run over by, can't remember who it was, but yeah. What did you think of the Chiefs performance? Great, like a lot of heart, but focus on I don't know, the actual position that you're playing, I guess.
Yeah, I honestly think that his time as the Roosters number 9, I'll be surprised if it's even sort of he's playing a different position next year, or even signed by another club. But more likely, like I think the Roosters need a conventional servicing number 9 rather than a hard running dive over the line sort of bullocking number 9. And someone a little less volatile than Cheese, as much as I love him. But yeah,
He's a great player.
yeah, he is a great player, but he suits certain teams more than others. And like I think the Roosters would go well with someone like Wade Egan, just that sort of classic ball serviced. Sam Verrills, he was all right. You know, I was surprised when they got rid of him for Cheese. But yeah, I love Cheese. Hesitate to bag out anything he does. But yeah, I think they need a different number 9 in my point of view. But hopefully I'm wrong. What do I know? Next game is Dragons versus Panthers. This one's at Wollongong.
Ooh, I mean, the Panthers will win, but the Dragons aren't. The Dragons are a good team considering the playing roster they've got. They're now Flano. Now there's a coach. He can coach. And give him a few more good players, and this game would be a lot closer. But yeah, Panthers probably too good for this one.
Yeah, for me, Flano's right up there in the coach of the year conversation. To take that squad, who I thought was absolute poo coming into the season, and now they're pushing top 8. Well, that is a coaching masterclass. He's got to be right up there in the conversation. I'm going to go Penrith, but I love the look of this game. It's one of my favourite stadiums, right on the beach there as well. And it's a daytime game, 2 o'clock. If that's a sunny day, there'd be some great scenes. Dolphins versus Titans, bit of a Queensland derby here. This one's at Suncorp Stadium. You never know with the Titans, but you never know with the Dolphins. So who have you got?
Yeah, I think the Dolphins. I mean, they should win this one. I hope Katoa, he's got a bit of stick online about his performance. Well, not his performance, just his game management towards the end of the game. And I just hope that he bounces back because the kid's a talent. But the Titans, weren't they disappointing yesterday? So yeah, I don't see the Titans coming close to this one.
Titans next year, though. I think they'll come good. Carter Gordon. All right, last one. And yeah, we'll wrap up the episode with tip for the Raiders versus the Rabbitohs down in Canberra Sunday night. I hate a Sunday night time slot, but yeah, whatever. Who have you got for that one?
So the Jack Whiten Bowl. Jack didn't leave the Raiders with much. He had a bit of a tough last season or two with us, but I'm picking the Raiders. I think Jamal Fogarty another week back, Hosking with another week back. We had a poor 70 minutes, but the 10 minutes we did play well. We looked really good, and I hope that if you just sort of extrapolate that 10 minutes out, we should be able to beat the Rabbitohs at home.
I'll go Rabbitohs by 18 plus for that one, which is a good place to leave it. Thanks, everyone, for listening. We'll see you again next Monday night.
Cheers, bro. Have a good one.
You too, bro. See ya.
Thanks for listening to Everything Rugby League. If you like this episode, give the show a follow and leave a review. For more news and insights, follow us on Facebook or head to everythingrugbyleague.com.